Chess Grandmaster Garry Kasparov has spent his life looking at opponents, analyzing strategies, capturing weaknesses and anticipating moves. Today Kasparov is a fierce opponent of Putin and of the invasion of Ukraine. For these reasons, he is often invited to international events to express his point of view on the war. In some situations, the interviewer frames the questions as if the setting was a chess match. In other situations, whether he does it intentionally or not, it is Kasparov himself that frames his answers in terms of a chess game, as he talks about clear objectives, strategy, quick moves, knowledge of the opponents, risk-taking. These are all elements that were part of his style of playing and, according to Kasparov, are the keys to win any kind of conflict. One of such events was the Warsaw Security Summit. Here the interviewer tries, as a metaphor, to bring Kasparov to the chessboard, but he wasn't quite interested.
Now you are the chess master. Tell me, what is Vladimir Putin's next move?
I don't feel comfortable comparing the games Vladimir Putin has been playing with my beloved game of chess. One is, I always feel I have to defend the integrity of my game. And also, dictators don't play chess, they play poker. Because chess is a game where you have all information available, 100%. You don't know about the plans of your opponent, but you know exactly what kind of resources he or she can use to hurt you. Dictators prefer cards, poker, because they can bluff. They can win with a weak hand by raising the stakes, by bluffing. And that's what Putin has been doing all the time. Every time having a weak hand, he bluffed, put the stakes up, and the opposition always folded the cards.
Kasparov's chess style was considered aggressive, and not surprisingly, he criticizes NATO and the Western economies for not being more aggressive in reacting to Putin. In particular, the chess master criticizes the West for not fully acknowledging that they are at war with Vladimir Putin, who, in his part, is more aggressively committed to the conflict.
So it's the how can you make Putin suffer? Yes, you can probably reduce his profit, but suffer in the world where the West refuses to recognize the fact that we're at war. Vladimir Putin is at war with NATO. NATO pretends that, oh, we're helping Ukraine. So I'm not sure that ambassadors have been recalled. We're still playing the game as if nothing happened. Again, we play chess, he plays poker.
For Kasparov, the objective is always to win, and this can be accomplished by clearly stating the goals, taking bold decisions and then deploy the strategy, just like in a chess game.
Let them say publicly, Ukraine must win. And then when you declare your goal, the strategy, you can supply it with various tactical moves. And you definitely can find ways of making Putin's profits reduce dramatically. If the oil is being brought by tankers, how about imposing some taxes, for instance, in Denmark, in the Channel? So you say, okay, we have special rules for Russians. The war cannot be won by incremental moves. It's about bold decisions.
Mind games have an important role during a dispute, and this is true in war situations as well as in a chess game. The interviewer mentions Putin's threats of using tactical nuclear weapons. While these threats have been discussed internationally, Putin himself has not explicitly stated that he will use them, leading to speculations that it's a classical bluff to keep opponents on edge.
And he's already made several bluffs, President Putin. One of them, of course, was this idea that he was going to use tactical nuclear weapons. We haven't seen that.
Never said it.
Well, it was discussed.
Yeah, but that's discussed by the other side. He never said anything, but he knows. Some of these.
But he never ruled it out.
Yeah, but that's classical bluff.
That's what I'm saying.
On the other hand, Kasparov criticizes the American approach of openly stating what they will not do. He argues that this is a mistake, as it limits the strategic options. And this is in contrast with Putin's approach, which keeps options open and creates uncertainty in the opponent's mind.
The problem is, this is what is being done by Americans. We will never use, boots on the ground. Yeah, we will never do it. Since Obama, American administration, one after another, always, just cut the options. No, we'll never do that. Yeah, we know you will never do that, but can you shut up, please? Just don't say it, openly.
Or created options they weren't going to take, like
And
red
Putin,
lines in
Putin
Syria.
is a good poker player,
Yeah.
He knows that if your opponent is worried about tactical nukes.
The importance of being aggressive is evident also in other war settings, like cyber wars. Kasparov highlighted this point in a previous event where he was a guest.
I think it's in cyber conflicts, in cyber wars, basically there's the same rule as in nuclear deterrence. So defense is always inferior to attack. And what we found out now that this is while Russians obviously could cause terrible damage to not only to Ukraine but to any other country, but they now see what happens if attack comes back. And I think what we found, or what we see now, the first lesson of this cyber war is that Russia is very vulnerable. And that's why I think they will think twice before doing anything to involve in this war Europeans or moreover Americans.
In the mind of a chess player, resources are a key factor. Every piece on the chessboard has a value and a role, but most importantly, they are not limitless. A lack of strategy means that resources will be wasted, and in a war situation, this means unnecessary loss of lives. This is a consequence that is strongly criticized by Kasparov.
Ukraine is losing manpower.
Yeah.
Ukraine doesn't have, I'm really pissed off hearing some of people here saying, oh, the war can go forever. How can you say that, It's Ukrainian blood, So how the politicians from, European countries or America can talk about, the endless war? It cannot be endless. Ukraine doesn't have Chinese number of men and women. So I'm not sure. I don't know whether they're on the stretch or not, but it's at least amoral because they pay in blood for our indecisiveness, for our incremental supply of weapons.
A recent article on the Financial Times confirms Kasparov's point. But the shortage is not just about soldiers. Weapons, vehicles and ammunition need to be produced, and for these tasks a country needs welders, electricians and other skilled workers. The Financial Times reported how defense manufacturers are struggling to find people with these skills. Kasparov then shares his views about the consequences of uncertainty.
And Putin believes that, uncertainty helps him. By the way, using chess analogies, uncertainty always helps dictators because strength of democracy is strategy, continuity. Something happens, we know, they have a plan. Dictators are much better with tactics because they don't care about parliament, public opinion, so just boom. And uncertainty, which is brought by war, it's always in his favor. Look, Slovakia elections, that's what Putin, maybe elections here, God knows what happens in America. It's always, creates opportunities for him and he's very good master of grabbing opportunities.
One of the solutions that the chess master suggests is to empower small teams, as they are able to make faster decisions, move swiftly and limit the losses.
In modern warfare, whether it's cyber or on the battlefield, the autonomous units, they have a huge advantage over centralized structure. One of the reasons the Russians failed to take Kyiv and eventually lost the battle for Kyiv is that Ukrainians were very good in just operating in small units. So, and the advantage of Russian hardware, heavy armor, was neutralized because they got stuck. And Ukrainians knew that, basically hitting one tank with a commander paralyzes the whole column. And since it's their country, and they know the terrain, and they had enough, data, so they could actually operate with small units causing horrible damage. Because it's not about, just overwhelming firepower. It's basically about critical elements on whether it's cyber infrastructure or whether it's a military command on the battlefield. And that's, I think, one of the key lessons. Now, you have to invest in individual capabilities, in small groups that could operate with very loose command control. Initiative is a key factor, it's in this game because timing is everything. So if waiting for central command, will lose, time, and then it's, whatever you do could be totally, irrelevant.
In his masterclass, Kasparov talks about the importance of analyzing the player's own strategy, but equally important is to understand the moves of the opponent.
There are a few things we have to know about dictators. It's one, they always lie about what they have done. Two is they very often tell us exactly what they're going to do. And I'm not going just to second guess. I was just listening to Putin for more than 20 years. And I have to say that he always delivered on his promises. Putin said many times, and Russian propaganda has been repeating it, parroting it for 8 years, Ukraine was not a real state, it had to be destroyed. Ukraine is not a real nation, they have to be assimilated, and those who are not willing to assimilate should be exterminated. That's not me, that's them. And every day they double down on that. Another thing about dictators, they never ask why, it's always why not. So the answer to your question, he will not stop until he's stopped. So that's why there's only one way to stop Putin from attacking NATO countries is to let Ukraine win the war, actually to make Ukraine win the war. And that's why the free world must, step up by supplying Ukraine with everything this great country and this great nation needs to win this war.
All of these elements emphasize the importance of having a strong leadership, something that Kasparov does not recognize in Trump or Biden or in other European leaders.
As you look at this chessboard, are you worried that the Western countries don't have the courage to actually go for checkmate? Are they going to try and, let's take them one by one. What do you make of the Germans and the French? And secondly, do you think the White House is actually willing to stand up to Putin and actually try and win this war?
No. As for courage, the answer is of course not. When you're talking about leadership, the way the Western leadership had behaved prior to the war, again, having everything, just on like signs on the wall. So it tells us that they try to avoid moments of making big decisions. Now they are just, they have their back against the wall. They have no choice, and the public is behind these efforts. But it's still, it's still not enough. And I think they just, they are terrified by the consequences because they don't know what will happen, if Putin wins, if Putin loses. So we're dealing mostly with managers.
The view was confirmed more recently, and it offers a pessimistic scenario of what might happen if one of the two leading contenders will win the next presidential elections in the United States.
If it does, it will be a disaster because Trump will start playing another poker game with Putin, and Ukraine will be one of the bargaining chips, as many other things. Now, we can't afford it. We need leadership that will not play by chance, but will offer us a vision into the future. And I think it will be a disaster if American future will be decided in rematch between two men with combined age of 160.
And to that logic, is that visionary leadership going to come from another Joe Biden presidency?
I don't think Joe Biden presidency can offer us anything. So it's and I believe that it's time to consider who will carry the torch of freedom. And I don't think Joe Biden's hands are strong enough to carry it.
Garry, it's great to have you here at the Warsaw.